Welcome to the Flourish with Dr. B podcast, where we inspire people to flourish in mind, body, and spirit. And today I have a wonderful guest on. I think we've known each other for maybe a little under 2 years now. I've collaborated with her. She's been my mentor and my coach and my fellow coach over at in Pittsburgh, of all places, with a wonderful group there that introduced us to each other. And since then, she's just been such a wonderful beacon for me as I also navigate my coaching and speaking career. And she's the author of 3 books, and I have 2 of them here. One's an ebook, so The Peer Revolution and Wayfinding. And I'd love for her to talk today about her most recent book, which is Wayfinding, Navigating Your Personal Evolution and Professional Growth Mountains. And it's just really a great reflective read. Um, and although I'm still getting through it, there's been a lot of already a lot of contemplative questioning just based on a few of the first few pages that I've read. I mean, more than a few pages. So Christy, tell us a little bit about yourself. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Dr. B. Always a pleasure to share space with you. And of course, to your audience, thank you for joining us today. I'm really honored to be here.
Thank you.
As to what was the question? To tell you about myself?
Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then lead us into this great piece of work that you did and how you ended there. Not
I can,
ended, but ended up there.
yeah, I can absolutely do that. So, if wayfinding is a new word for you, wayfinding is the ancient art of building your map as you go. So, as we move through uncertainty, change, transitions, chaos, fear in our lives, what most of us want is a GPS to give us turn by turn directions, right? Plug in, here's where I am, here's where I want to go. For people of my generation, that's like a AAA triptych. Do you remember those? How we would have them and we would go to AAA and they would print
Yeah,
out and tell us, here's where there's
yeah,
construction and here's where
yeah.
you're going to go off here. And if you need to stop, now we have these amazing things called GPS. But navigating through uncertain times, whether it relates to life, whether it relates to leadership, and I'm a leadership coach, just doesn't work that way. So, what we need now more than ever is to rely on the ancient skill of map making.
Mhm.
And my work, you had my first book up, The Peer Revolution. My work has always been in the space of peer to peer learning and peer mentoring. And I often say, as it relates to wayfinding, the peer group is so, so important because no one builds maps of new lands alone. So that's the premise of wayfinding. I am a reinvention coach, and I work with people, leaders, teams, and companies ready to challenge the status quo. And that can be around culture, that could be around engagement, that could be around retention, it can be around talent development. I'm a 25-year veteran coach, and I've had the privilege to work with leaders at all levels, specifically as a pioneer in the group coaching space, which ties to the peer mentoring. And I have been doing that work globally with this company, Edge Leadership, for the last 13 years. So, in the last 13 years, more than 13,000 leaders globally have gone through our
Wow.
group coaching programs.
Wow. And I was one of them.
And you were one of them. Yes. Well, you, my dear, you called me a beacon. You have been a beacon and such a lovely partner in terms of, I've open sourced my peer technology model to how do coaches and teachers and facilitators, we have folks in academia, we have folks in scouting at all different levels taking this model and applying it to their groups.
So, just a little inside for our listeners is so I I actually was trained by Christy to do the peer coaching, peer mentoring with this group of Filipino women in Pittsburgh. And I will be quite honest. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work because
I
they're
remember that. You're like, I got my model. I'm kind of good over here.
like they're Filipinos and we don't really follow directions. Well, no, I'm just kidding. But I have to tell you, it was one of the most rewarding experiences that I've ever had in coaching, mentoring, and being coached. The whole, talking about containers and cohorts and I mean, these women took it and ran with it. We're talking about getting better jobs that they deserved based on their acumen. We're talking about beginning relationships and also ending some because they weren't serving, even marriages, they weren't serving them, but finding a newfound confidence in the cohort. And just, getting healthier. For me, the transformation, I'm getting chills talking about it. The transformation over those 6 months using your model was just unbelievable. I was so touched, and they really they took it in and they did their accountability buddies, and we did all the things that you had coached us to do, and it really it made more than just a coaching experience. It made a family, it made a community, it made a sisterhood, and it was just unremarkable. I mean, just I couldn't believe the experience. It was really one of the best coaching experiences I had ever experienced. I can't say it enough. It was just astounding. So I'm a big believer in your peer mentoring and peer coaching, and hopefully one day can start one here on Long Island, just like they did. So we'll see what happens. But okay, so you told us about pretty much who you're looking for, ideal client wise, is basically anyone that wants to level up, right? And have peers around them to do it with them, right? Like just um so okay, so just transitioning over to your wayfinding book, like tell us a little bit about it. I know that's your baby. I know it's your passion. You light up every time we talk about it.
That's
And
funny that you
I
notice. Of
just
course, you would notice that. It's
yeah.
true. I say to folks all the time, like, it's the best work of my life. It really is. Like, everything has been leading me to this, which is just so joyful when you know when you're aware that you're on the path,
Yeah.
and that to me is part of what I love about wayfinding is when I first started studying personal evolution, I've been a coach now for 25 years, more than 25 years, which is crazy to me. And, I used to think that development, evolution, was this very linear path that one led to the other, led to the other. So if you think about four parts in the book, I refer to it as a compass, the wayfinding compass, and it's self-awareness, self-alignment, self trust, and self worth. And traditionally, many coaches, myself included, until the last few years when I went through my own dark night of the soul, and wayfinding was birthed from that. But I used to think that it was a line, right? The more self awareness you had, the more you knew who you were, what your core values are, what matters to you, not what you think should matter to you, but what truly matters to you, the more you can walk in self alignment. Right. And self alignment is leading a life of integrity, not again against a barometer of what the world thinks you should be, but against what you want to be, who you naturally are. And the peer group is so important in that because we can develop ourselves, evolve, reading a book, listening to a podcast, but we are forever limited by our own belief systems. So what I talk
Mm,
about in wayfinding is self-limiting belief systems. And so when we are only working on ourselves with ourselves, we can't see our own greatness because of
right.
our inner critic, because of our outdated operating system that could be a belief system that no longer serves us. So when we introduce peers, like you think about your group, the self awareness deepens. because now we're giving each other feedback and perspectives, and there's diversity of thought and there's experience. And also, because we are calling one another forth to be our best selves, we also become brilliant mirrors for one
Mm.
another to shine our greatness back, even when we don't believe it yet. And then that self alignment piece, well, that's where the accountability partners come in that you were talking about before, right? Adults very rarely change behaviors on our own. But when we have our peers to come beside us, to hold us accountable, to check in with a text, to check in with a call, to check in with an email, to ask, how's your marriage, Christy? I know that's your goal this year. What have you done
Mhm.
for Kevin lately that has helped him feel loved and respected? What have you done for yourself lately? Those questions call us back forth to walk in our own integrity. And so, going back to that line, the more that I walk in alignment with who I am, the more self trust I build. So
Right.
if self awareness is the what matters to me, self alignment, well, that's the how. It's how I live it. And self trust, that's the win. That's the consistency of trying something new and failing and falling
Yeah.
and trying again. It's the practice of showing up for yourself and learning to become as loyal to yourself as you are to those you lead and to those you love. It involves befriending our inner critic. It involves learning how to set boundaries and sustain them, and not just boundaries with other people, but boundaries with ourselves, because the boundaries we break most often are the boundaries with ourselves. That I'm going to close down my computer Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 o'clock. That I'm going to get to Pilates class today at 4:30. That I'm going to prioritize my own well-being. But then the next crisis comes in, or my son needs me, or someone on the team dropped a ball and it needs to be picked up. And what do we always do? We rise to take care of others before ourselves. And
Mhm.
so that self trust, the more we walk in self trust, the more we build our self worth. That's our enoughness, that I'm
Yes.
a good enough mom, that I'm a good enough wife, that I'm a good enough coach or leader.
Mhm.
And so for years, Dr. B, for years, 20 years, I thought that it was this linear process, and one led to the other, led to the other, led to the other. And at some point, I would have it figured out. But what I have learned is that there is no such thing as personal mastery. Perfection doesn't exist in the
All
human
right.
condition. And so, as I talk about in wayfinding, it's not a line, it's a circle. And in fact, as a woman of faith, you know this, it's not a circle, it's a spiral. Because we keep coming back to old patterns with new eyes. And that is evolution. And that is what we as humans were built to do. We were never meant to stay the same.
Yeah. And I remember we talked about this before, and it's like the spiral, it may look the same, but we may be elevating on the way up and up and up instead of either a spiral down or whatever, or going around in circles, like you said. This aligns a lot with, I'm doing a lot of work as well to just flourish, as my name of my everything is. And I continually remind myself that flourishing doesn't mean like everything is, like you said, linear and perfect and whatever. It's doing things and pivoting if so you're still in integrity, you're still building that self-trust, but it may not look like 30 minutes on the treadmill today. It may look like 15, and you're still in integrity and you're still in trust. And then when you get up in front of people to speak about this, you still feel good about yourself because you're still in integrity. It's not, like you said, it's not linear, but it's that spiral that, okay, maybe it's not exactly the way I put on the paper, but I'm still true to myself. I'm still honoring myself, right? That's
Yes.
basically what you're saying in terms of the whole, like the wayfinding, like finding your way inward and what's your integrity around your um covenant with yourself, I guess is what I'm
Yes.
trying to say.
Yes. And your goals. And because we evolve, so do our ways of relating to ourselves, right? What served me that allowed me to flourish at 40 is not the same thing as it is at 50. And
Right.
it certainly isn't the same thing at 25. So like that's why that self-reflection time is so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Is, for a lot of us, we only have introspection when we join a leadership program, when we work with a therapist or a coach, when we have dear friends that challenge us and, provide those insights. But the truth is that because we were meant to evolve, what serves us, what allows us to flourish, to use your words, is also going to change. The other
Yes.
interesting thing that you said that I wanted to call out, again, going from this very traditional linear process where one leads to the other leads to the other. Often, I believe that that is an outdated belief system that many of us have been acculturated to, we've been raised in, where I take a step forward and then when I fall, I take two steps back.
Mm.
And again, going back to that circle image, think in terms of cycle. Nature is a cycle. Seasons are a cycle.
Seasons.
The moon is a cycle. The tides are a cycle, right? So if we look at flourishing as it relates to a cycle, then yes, it's important that I have the self-awareness of what serves me right now, but I can also look at my alignment in terms of rest and recovery. So
Hmm.
there are seasons for me that are about writing a book. And that to me, when I was writing Wayfinding, that to me is a winter because I am pulling into myself and I am researching and I am sitting with my thoughts and I am channeling and I am doing all of that. That is writing to me is rest and recovery. Now, when I'm promoting a book, that's
Hmm.
summer.
Right.
That's fall. That's harvest. That's being out there trying to connect with as many people as possible and bring this work to them. But as we look at our seasons of a year, as we look at our seasons in a life, as we look at our seasons in a week, how do we incorporate those rest and recovery moments, even in a day?
Yeah.
Versus always muscling and grinding and pushing ourselves through as if it is a race to be won.
Yeah.